They played Fever basketball for, I would say, about 75 to 80% of the game. And we have obviously seen this style of basketball, the style of basketball that we all know and love from the Indiana Fever, but we have only really seen it in short spurts. They scored 64 points in the first half and then obviously ended the game with over 100 points. And you just saw the ball moving. You saw everybody running the floor. Like, I feel like at some point in time during the game, every player had a fast break bucket. Like we normally see Caitlin Clark, but she did have 2 3-pointers tonight and she was 4 for 12 from the field. So like I said, she's still not shooting at the percentage as she normally would.
Was the Clark-Bueckers rivalry exposed as pure hype? Paige Bueckers just opened up after her team's devastating 102-83 loss to Caitlin Clark and the Fever. But what did she really think about facing Clark on such a huge stage? And why are some calling it a mental dismantling? Let's break down what Bueckers said and how Clark delivered a performance that shut down the narrative. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Everyone was ready for fireworks.
Indiana Fever beat the Dallas Wings 102-83. This was a highly anticipated game because it was going to be the first time that Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers would be going up against one another in the WNBA. There have been so many games and so many times throughout this season where it feels like the Fever system is a slow down basketball type of system. Their offense wasn't running smoothly. Caitlin Clark was taking the ball up the court. She was the one who was creating a lot of these fast break buckets. And Caitlin Clark ended the game with 14 points, 13 assists, and 5 steals.
Two of the brightest young stars in women's basketball finally going head-to-head, a game dripping with potential, talent, and storylines. The media couldn't resist building it up as the next great rivalry. Paige Bueckers and Caitlin Clark, the future icons destined to define an era. But when the buzzer sounded, the story wasn't about two equals battling it out. It was about one player who took complete control and left no room for debate. Here's the thing. Was this ever really a rivalry? Sure, their names were linked as top-tier prospects coming into the league, their college runs made headlines, and fans had been dying to see how their games would stack against each other at the next level. But some of that might have just been wishful thinking. When Clark took the court against Bueckers, the gap in their impact couldn't have been clearer. 14 points, 13 assists, and 5 steals from Clark weren't just numbers. They were evidence of how she defined the game on every level. Meanwhile, Bueckers struggled to find her footing in key stretches. If Clark was a symphony, perfectly orchestrated and balanced, Bueckers looked more like a busted violin that couldn't quite keep up with the tempo.
This was one of their best games as far as playing Fever basketball, which is a fast-paced style of basketball. We saw Natasha Howard running the floor, and that was something that the Indiana Fever was excited about when they brought her into the mix. They call her the Flash for a reason because she is quick and she is speedy and she can get down the length of the court. Let's talk about this Caitlin Clark Paige Bueckers rivalry. This rivalry to me is a much better one than the Angel Reese Caitlin Clark rivalry because Paige and Caitlin essentially play the same position. They are both at least guards.
Clark didn't just shine individually. She elevated everyone around her. Take Kelsey Mitchell, for example. Mitchell dropped 20 points on an eye-popping 67% shooting, and it wasn't a coincidence. Clark's passing carved up the defense, creating wide-open looks that even the best defenders couldn't stop. Her ability to set up backdoor cuts or stretch the floor with perfectly timed assists was like watching an architect build masterpiece after masterpiece. The way Clark controlled the pace wasn't just skill, it was dominance. She made every possession look effortless, as if the game was happening at her speed, her rhythm. By the end of it, the question shifted. Was this a rivalry? Or was it just two players on very different levels? And what does Bueckers think about all of this? Her reaction after the game says a lot more than you'd expect. Paige Bueckers didn't shy away after the loss. When asked about going head-to-head with Caitlin Clark, she described the matchup as fun. But it wasn't just small talk. Her words carried more weight when she acknowledged how dominant the Fever, led by Clark, had been. For Bueckers, this game wasn't just a competition, it was a test, one that magnified both the struggles her team faced and the undeniable challenge Clark presents every time she steps on the floor.
It is also only Caitlin Clark's third game back from injury, and this season for the Indiana Fever has been a roller coaster ride. Caitlin Clark's first bucket of the night was a long three-pointer, and she was excited for that. A lot of fans were excited for that because it still seems like she's not shooting at the highest clip. There has been ups, there has been downs, there has been times that we have been so confused on what is actually going on with this team.
What makes this more interesting is their history. These two have played against and alongside each other for years, so there's a mutual respect that comes through in Bueckers' comments. She's no stranger to Clark's intensity on the court and knows exactly what she's capable of. That's what made facing her on such a big platform so unique. Bueckers showed her competitive side, but her remarks also hinted at the humbling effect of Clark's performance. She didn't just recognize a rival across the floor. She saw something that transcended a typical matchup. The Fever's home court advantage also loomed large in the outcome. Bueckers mentioned the great environment, noting how the energy of the Indiana crowd added pressure to an already tough game. Every pass and basket by Clark seemed amplified in that arena, and it's no coincidence that the Fever thrived as a unit in those conditions. For Bueckers, the noise wasn't just coming from the stands, it was in Clark's play, the way she dictated the game's rhythm and made the Fever unrelenting. Bueckers also couldn't ignore what Clark brought out in her team. With 13 assists, Clark didn't just score, she created. Bueckers acknowledged the way Clark elevated everyone else, turning the Fever into a seamless machine. That's rare, and Bueckers seemed to recognize it firsthand. It wasn't bitter, though. It came off more as an acknowledgement of something special. Paige's words painted Clark as someone building more than wins. She's shaping the Fever's identity and shifting the WNBA narrative in the process. What does that mean for rivalries? It's bigger than that now. The Paige Bueckers versus Caitlin Clark rivalry? It might have just been a headline. Clark isn't competing with anyone right now. She's separating herself. Her performance wasn't just dominant. It redefined what true impact looks like. Beyond the stats, Clark is shaping the Fever and the league itself. Their transformation, breaking scoring records, filling arenas, is proof of her influence. The WNBA almost fumbled this by focusing on petty narratives, but Clark's play is too big to ignore. She's not just a player, she's a movement. If you're not watching this, you're missing how the next era of basketball is being rewritten.